Ben Phillips is the International Director for Campaign and Policy, Action 8 International. Action 8 Liberia continues its Power Analysis Dialogue series, this time looking at alternatives to privatization in the delivery of quality public services in Liberia and the work of Action 8 on inequality. He's on the line. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm having a wonderful time in Liberia. It's a beautiful place. I've tasted delicious pepper soup. Met some amazing people, having a great time.
Okay, I can see you started up already, so the energy is there. Tell me about today's event. Why is it necessary to focus on alternatives to privatization in the delivery of quality public services in Liberia, as Action 8 International and Action 8 Liberia looking with this focus?
Well, you know, there's nothing more important than building an equal society. And Liberia played a really key role at the UN, demanding a set of goals that call for every country to build an equal society. And for the equal society, parents want all of the kids to go to good schools, everyone wants good health care for everyone. And all the evidence from around the world is that the way to build it up is by building up public services. If I was to ask your listeners to name the country that has achieved universal education by expanding the private sector, nobody could name a country because there isn't one. And so it's really important that every country, including Liberia, builds up a wonderful public sector, good government schools and government hospitals that everyone can make use of. Now, there's a debate going on at the moment in Liberia. Should we hand over all of our schools to some private company? Maybe they'll fix it. Well, the evidence is, from around the world, they won't. Uganda started going around that route, changed its mind, realized it made a mistake, has stopped it. It's really important that Liberia hears the evidence, hears what's really happening around the world and in Liberia, and works out how they can build quality public services. There is no solution from privatization. It will only make the gap between rich and poor, between boys and girls, even worse than it is. But we can, together, build up good public services that work for everybody.
Okay. So are you saying, in short, that through this series that Liberia is better poised for quality public services if specific areas are, like, you know, privatized?
So privatization is not going to help. If you want to improve public services, let's get parents more involved in schools. Let's ensure that uniforms are free. Let's ensure that there's enough teachers so that teachers aren't having to teach classes of 60 or 70 kids. Let's ensure that there's good facilities, toilets, the computers, the good books in every school. That's the way to fix it. Now, some people have been saying that if we hand it all over to some private company, that private company will fix it. But that hasn't worked anywhere else in the world. And we visited one of those schools yesterday, and we saw that what's happened is that they sent some of the kids out of that school, where a school has been handed over to a private company. Kids that were already going to that school, they said, hey, you kids, now you go to another school. So now the neighboring schools are going to be even more crowded. So there's no magic solution to come from a private company that's going to come in with underpaid, undertrained teachers that just get 17 days training, where you've got very young, inexperienced teaching staff just working from a tablet, not even using their creativity and imagination. That's not a way to build up young Liberians to be leaders of tomorrow. But what we can do, and the evidence shows, and it's been achieved in other countries, and Liberia can do it too, is to build up quality public services so we have a more equal society. That's the society that Liberians have been crying out for. They don't want a society that's divided. They want a society where everyone has a chance. And we can do that with good schools by making the public sector work. But this myth that there's some solution from handing over everything to a big corporation that just wants to make money, that's not going to work. It hasn't worked anywhere else. That's why Uganda is realizing this isn't working. This is why Kenya is slowing down their program. And Liberians need to hear that story, and they're listening to that story, and they're starting to ask questions and say, hang on, maybe this isn't the right way to go.
So in short, this outsourcing of our primary education to, this different groupings, international grouping, for example, is a real bad idea.
It's a real bad idea. The evidence for this working is zero. The number of countries that have achieved quality education by doing this is zero. So this is being pursued without reference to the lessons from other countries. Other countries have started to go down this road, realized it was a mistake, and change course. We're not saying, no one's saying everything should stay the same. No one's saying all the government schools right now are fine. They're not. They need more investment. We need more teachers. We need more training. There should be free uniforms for every kid, free books for every kid, classrooms that are equipped for the 21st century. This is possible to do, and it's possible to do while keeping those systems public, accountable to voters, not to shareholders.
Okay. That's a good part, accountable to voters and not shareholders, because shareholders will be looking for profit.
Shareholders are looking for a fast up, and you know what those shareholders will say? They'll say, oh, to make this school good, we're going to push out your kids. We're going to push out your kids because we want to make sure our school is good by limiting the number of children. So there are kids who have been going to government schools who are now being told, you can't go to this school anymore. You know why? Because the company wants to say, we've got smaller class sizes. But the way you achieve smaller class sizes is by hiring more teachers, by building more classrooms and more schools. It's not by kicking those kids out. Where are those kids going to go? They're going to go to already overcrowded classrooms with already overstretched teachers. So these companies are going to make a buck, but they're going to pass on the pressure to other schools. But it doesn't have to be this way. You know, when parents get involved in education, when we can get transparency in budget, when we can get real strong investment, kids can do well. Liberian kids are really smart. I've been meeting with some wonderful girls and boys this week. There's so much potential in this country. There are the future leaders, and I've met them, and they can come out of wonderful government schools. We can make the government schools work. No one's saying they're perfect right now. But what people are saying, what the experts are saying, what the teachers are saying, what the NGOs are saying, what other governments are saying, and you know what the United Nations experts are saying as well, is that handing these things over to corporations is just a way to increase division and hurt the education of children in this country.
So let's look at the issue of inequality. Within what context should this whole thing about inequality be heightened?
Well, people around the world are really concerned about the issue of inequality. There's been some good progress in development, some good progress. It's great to see countries that have come from war to peace. It's great to see that, you know, more people have food and more people are getting chances in life. There's been some good progress. But there's a real danger, and this is a danger across the world, and that's the gap between those at the very top and the rest of the people is getting bigger and bigger and bigger in every country in the world. And that's why the UN last year, every country agreed that we've really got to tackle this problem. And Liberia played a really, really important role in that. To say that, you know, functioning societies where there's peace depend on that gap between the haves and the have-nots not being too big. And if you want to have real sustained economic growth, then ordinary people have got to have money too. They've got to have decent wages. They've got to have a share of the growth. If all the money just stays in the hands of a few, those people are not going to buy local. They're going to stash it in banks. They're going to buy foreign. They're not going to build up the local economy. So more equal economies mean more peaceful societies, means better growth. It means more stability, and it means a happier country. And that's why every country last year promised that they're going to tackle this problem of inequality. That means between rich and poor, between men and women, between different ethnic and religious groups, all the different forms of inequalities have to be tackled together. And what's exciting is that it's possible. If you look at countries, the record of countries like Bolivia, or what Brazil managed to achieve over the past 10 to 15 years, show that it is possible to reduce inequality, that we don't have to have, you know, we don't have to say to young men, there's no job for you, there's nothing for you to do. We don't have to say to young women, you're never going to be an equal citizen. It's possible to build equal societies. Now, a lot of countries, you know, have really been struggling with that. That's why the alarm's been raised. The good news is they've all promised they're going to tackle it. So then we have to look at how do you tackle it. We need to redistribute land. We need to ensure that big corporations and the richest people are paying their fair share of tax. We need to expand investment in public services like health and education. We need to boost jobs. We need to boost those parts of the economy that boost jobs. That's not going to come from extractives. It's going to come from agriculture and services and, really importantly, manufacturing. And we need to ensure that women have the same chances as men. I heard a wonderful song here in Liberia. People said, no more men at the front and women at the back. We will walk together, side by side, hand in hand. And that's the message of this inequality story, that this division between rich and poor, this growing gap, doesn't have to be that way. It's possible to have societies where everybody has a chance, where everybody matters.
So where is this happening today, the policy dialogue? Where is it taking place, sir?
This is happening at Bella Casa in Monrovia. Come along. We really need to hear from you. We need to hear voices from people from across all walks of society. What is it that you're doing to build a more equal Liberia and a more equal world where everybody has a stake, where everybody matters, where everybody is precious? Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for having me. Take care.
He's Ben Phillips, International Director for Campaign and Policy Action Aid International. Action Aid Liberia continues its power analysis dialogue series, this time looking at alternatives to privatization in the delivery of quality public services in Liberia and the work of Action Aid on inequality. And of course, looking at the issue of privatization, actually talking about, if you look at the evidence in other countries, for example, Kenya, trying to see how they could improve the economy with privatization and all that. The evidence right now is zero. They started on a path, and so that was not working, and they stopped it. So what do? Is you make sure that you are able to expand investment in public services, agriculture, different areas, build opportunities for equal opportunities for both men and women, and make sure that the gap between the rich and poor is actually narrowed so that you can have sustained peace.